el segundo tramo. Vamos a ir a por el segundo tramo de Forex Day y para esta segunda etapa de ponencias. La persona que va a subir enseguida al escenario es Brenda Kelly. Ella es jefa de estrategias de mercados de IG. Su experiencia se basa en divisas y también en renta fija, con más de 10 años de experiencia en tesorería corporativa en Irlanda y también en Europa continental. Brenda ha desarrollado cursos de formación para traders en Irlanda y también en el Reino Unido, con un énfasis en estrategias sencillas que emplean el análisis técnico y también la gestión de riesgos. Brenda también es comentarista habitual en Inversor Online, Bloomberg, NBC y Sky News. Es residente en Londres y ha visitado Madrid en exclusiva para The Forex Day. En esta ponencia, Brenda nos va a enseñar su visión técnica y estrategias aplicadas a los principales pares de divisas. Brenda, adelante, todo tuyo.
Well, I suppose what I'm going to be talking about today is something that's very close to everyone who speaks or lives in the Eurozone and ultimately is working off lower bond yields as a result of actions from the ECB. But ultimately, what we're trying to see over the next little while as Forex traders is exactly what's going to happen in relation to the euro, particularly against the US dollar, and indeed, I suppose, against other currencies as well. So from that perspective, what we're going to do is look at some of the macro themes, some of the monetary policy divergencies, and indeed, we're also going to look at, I suppose, the technical analysis picture for the euro against a couple of other currencies.
Bueno, ¿se me oye? Sí. Lo que nos interesará ver en esta presentación será cuáles son las perspectivas respecto al euro y con respecto a algunas otras divisas.
Obviously, there are many ways of trading, but I think to have a bit of knowledge as to what factors actually move foreign exchange rates is exceptionally important. So we have a list of them here. Some of them are more important than others, but I would temper that this list is not actually in an actual order of priority. So the first one we have is monetary policy. The second one is political stability in that country. The third is the balance of payments. Then you've got your interest rates. And then, of course, you have the likes of sentiment and speculation in the market, bearing in mind that about 40% of all foreign exchange is actually based on speculation.
Bueno, vamos a ver algunos factores que influyen en los tipos cambiarios de Forex. Y esta lista de factores no está presentada en un orden de importancia exactamente, pero podríamos distinguir entre la política monetaria, la estabilidad política, la balanza de pagos, los tipos de interés, el sentimiento y la especulación, teniendo en cuenta que en torno a un 40% del mercado Forex es especulación.
So take them one by one. Monetary policy has clearly become a very important tenet of the foreign exchange rates that we've seen globally. And clearly, we have seen something of a form of currency wars in the global picture very recently. So, for example, we've seen quantitative easing from the Federal Reserve, we've seen quantitative easing from the likes of the Bank of England, and we've also more recently seen some action from the ECB, some long-awaited action from the ECB that may or may not be the driving force behind the euro's strength and weakness in the coming months and years.
Comenzando con la política monetaria, este es un factor que viene influyendo últimamente mucho y vemos acciones de la Reserva Federal y del Banco de Inglaterra y del Banco Central Europeo. Hay algunas acciones del Banco Central Europeo que podrían o no tener lugar, pero que están influyendo en el tipo de cambio del euro.
And then there's political stability. Obviously, the stability of the political state is exceptionally important. And you have to look in Europe, for example, for what's been happening in the Euro elections and whether or not there is a huge amount of support behind the single currency and indeed the federalization of the Eurozone itself. And this, in some respects, was the reason why we would have seen such Euro weakness over the last few years, up until we actually saw Mario Draghi make a statement that he was willing to do whatever it took to actually save the euro. You also have Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, who wants to see more euro rather than less euro. And this has led to some strength in the euro, which is reasonably good, but has had its negative effects as well.
Vamos a ver un poco la evolución del euro. En el punto en el que Draghi hizo su afirmación de que el Banco Central Europeo haría cualquier cosa que fuera necesaria para sostener al euro, mientras que, por otro lado, la canciller Merkel tenía interés en tener un euro más fuerte. Entonces, esto está dando lugar a influencias contradictorias, algunas favorables al euro y otras negativas.
And then thirdly, you have your balance of payments. Now, this is really just a reflection of the summary of all the economic and financial transactions between the country itself and the rest of the world. And this, of course, would help to drive the strength of that currency, depending on how that particular country's economic outlook is perceived by different countries.
Tenemos la balanza de pagos que refleja un poco las transacciones económicas de un país con el resto y también cómo se percibe ese país por los demás.
And then finally, or rather fourthly, we have interest rates. And this is something that's become something contentious recently, where we have seen finally some action from Mario Draghi and the European Central Bank in respect of interest rate action. And this, of course, will be a very big driver in the euro's journey against a variety of currencies over the coming years. Clearly, the aim is to reduce the strength of the euro, to spur lending, and, of course, to actually avert any deflationary spiral that might be there.
Tenemos también el factor de las tasas o tipos de interés, que ha sido un poco controvertido últimamente y ahora el Banco Central Europeo parece que está dispuesto a reducir aún más las tasas de interés y otras medidas no convencionales. Y el objetivo básicamente es debilitar al euro y, por supuesto, tratar de prevenir cualquier tipo de deflación en la zona euro.
I'm going to take sentiment and speculation together. There are many who are against any federalization of Europe. There are many who believe that the euro is destined to failure, and as a result of which, you will see speculation in the FX market that reflects that. And what often happens in FX markets, which is very against what fundamentals might suggest, is that they will actually drive the direction over and above a lot of the other factors that are listed on the screen in front of you. What we have seen over the last number of years is this speculation, and the strength of that speculation has been very much what has been making the likes of peripheral bond yields fall to all-time lows once again, and of course have really kind of made the ECB actually act. So it's not necessarily any fundamental picture, it's very much the ECB acting to avert this speculation which has been driving the euro that much higher.
Y vamos a abordar conjuntamente los dos últimos factores, que son sentimiento y especulación. Ha habido muchísima especulación en torno al euro, hay mucha gente que está en contra o no cree que vaya a federalizarse la Unión Europea. Y ha habido mucha especulación y se ha operado mucho en Forex en torno a la idea de si el Banco Central Europeo iba a hacer o no hacer ciertas acciones, más incluso que por los fundamentales de las economías de la zona euro.
So first of all, what we look at here is the journey of the euro against the US dollar. And you can see, just over the last number of years, the huge volatility we've seen in this currency pair. And just more recently, if we actually point at, this part of the chart, which I would in a minute, if I could, this particular level here, the fact that we have such a huge amount of resistance from the highs of around 160 against the US dollar to the levels that just about nearly made to $1.40. And from there, we have seen something of a reversal, mainly on the back of the fact that the markets have seen some action from the ECB. But the question is that actual action enough to see the euro go back down to lows a little bit more suitable to the strength of the actual economies contained within the eurozone?
Difficult. Bueno, este es un gráfico de los últimos años de evolución del euro-dólar y vemos que ha habido muchísima volatilidad en el par y perdí la última parte. Creo que la duda era si realmente iba a bajar hasta a descender desde estos niveles.
Thank you. And here are the reasons why the ECB actually acted. You have seen that growth is still quite low. In the first quarter of this year, the economy of the Eurozone was just 2% smaller than that of 2008, prior to the financial crisis. And in the same period, you have seen a 0.3% rise in the 28 EU countries. Take, for example, the UK, for example, which is actually back where it was pre the actual crisis in terms of its output and growth. And the reasons for the problem, really, and the reasons for some of the deflation and peripheral bond yields falling is down to the fact that inflation keeps declining. And this is a key indicator of a fragile recovery when the inflation rate is below 1%. And this can be troubling for indebted nations.
Viendo por qué el Banco Central Europeo se puso en acción, entró en acción, es que el crecimiento en la zona euro sigue siendo bajo. En el primer trimestre, la economía de la eurozona era más de un 2% por debajo de su nivel en 2008. Además, el Producto Interior Bruto en el mismo periodo subió solamente un 0,3% en los 28 países de la Unión y un 0,2% en los 18 países de la eurozona. Y si por un lado el crecimiento es bajo, la inflación sigue declinando o es débil. El principal indicador de una recuperación frágil es una tasa de inflación por debajo del 1%. Y esto además supone problemas para los países, las naciones más endeudadas.
And here's a map that we have of the harmonized inflation rate per country. Not very clear, I'm afraid, but you can actually see that if the ECB's stability policy is to keep inflation in around 2%, then it is drastically failing. All the darker shaded countries on this map have got inflation of lower than 1%. And this would imply the reason why we have seen some action. But ultimately, it has to be borne in mind that the ECB was very much in denial that there was any disinflation over the last 6 to 12 months. And there is a possibility that what we've seen happen just over the last couple of weeks might be a little bit too late in the day.
Aquí vemos un mapa que refleja un poco las tasas de inflación en los países de la eurozona y vemos cómo el Banco Central Europeo entró en acción porque había venido estando unos 6-12 meses negándose a considerar la posibilidad de que hubiera cualquier tipo de desinflación. Pero los países que se ven más oscuros tienen una tasa de inflación por debajo del 1%.
So what did the ECB actually do? They've introduced these new policy measures, and some have said really that Mario Draghi threw everything except the kitchen sink at the actual issues that we've been seeing in the Eurozone. So we've seen all three main ECB interest rates reduced. We've seen what is known as targeted longer-term refinancing operations, or TLTRO, introduced, which is basically to try and expand the balance sheet of the Eurozone and ultimately to spur some type of inflation. You've also seen the end of the sterilisation of the SMP, which is worth up to 119 billion euros, and there is this preparatory work on asset-backed security purchases as well, all with the aim of weakening the euro, driving inflation and driving some growth in some of the weaker countries as well.
Vamos a ver qué nuevas medidas monetarias ha adoptado el Banco Central Europeo y para empezar vemos que los tres principales tipos de interés del Banco Central ya han sido recortados y además han introducido operaciones LTRO escogidas, ¿no? Con operaciones de refinanciación a largo plazo condicionadas a que la liquidez se introduzca en la economía real.
So essentially, what does this actually mean? Okay, we've had these certain measures put in place. We've seen the euro pull back from that 140 against the US dollar, and we've seen it really much reside around the 135 level against the euro. But what is this basing us up for next? What is going to happen next with the ECB if we're going to see all of these aims met? And I think what we're probably going to see, well, certainly the speculation is there, is that the ECB is preparing the grounds for full-scaled quantitative easing, something slightly like that which happened in the Federal Reserve in the US over the last number of years. The question is really if it will work.
Sí, además también terminaron con la esterilización del programa del mercado de titulizaciones y han iniciado trabajos preparatorios para compras de activos respaldados de titulizaciones respaldadas por activos. La cuestión es si el Banco Central Europeo está preparándose para hacer una auténtica facilitación cuantitativa, QE, tal al estilo de la que hicieron la Reserva Federal o el Banco de Inglaterra, y también, por supuesto, la duda es si funcionará y hasta qué punto.
And this here is a summary of what the ECB actually did. And you can see the actual range of different policy measures that they introduced, from reducing the refi rate, the negative deposit rate, and the lending rate, as well as making these plans for the ABS purchasing. The full QE is what Mario Draghi said he is open to doing. But it has to be remembered that the ECB has one mandate, which is price stability. It does not necessarily have a mandate for quantitative easing, even if inflation is below that mandated 2%. So what we're going to be looking at in the next few slides is where the euro might go from here and whether or not these measures are going to be sufficient in the face of other monetary policies being undertaken by global central banks elsewhere, such as the Federal Reserve, such as in Switzerland, and indeed in Japan as well.
Bueno, en esta tabla se recogen las medidas que ya ha llevado a cabo el Banco Central Europeo, como recortar el tipo de refinanciación, la tasa de depósitos negativa y terminar la esterilización del programa SMP. Y lo que vemos es, de nuevo, hacer una facilitación cuantitativa. Es algo que Draghi ha afirmado que está dispuesto a hacer, pero hay dificultades. Vamos a ver cómo podrían influir en el euro.
So essentially, there are maybe good intentions, but plenty of unintended consequences. Banks, even though they've been asked to lend more money to small businesses and to really spur the economy growth in terms of the lending practices, would probably prefer to buy bonds rather than to do that. They might actually increase their demand for domestic government bonds, and this cheap financing might actually allow them to rebuild capital at a very attractive long-term spread. But a lot of them will increase their demand for domestic government bonds in the same sense as foreign investors will start to come in, and that could actually add to the strength of the euro as well. So there are a lot of reasons why the euro can weaken, but there are probably a lot more why the euro will probably go a little bit higher, and I would expect perhaps that 140 will be seen before we see 130 against the US dollar.
Mm-hmm. El mercado se puede preguntar si las actuaciones que ha realizado el Banco Central Europeo son bien intencionadas, pero quizás es demasiado poco y demasiado tarde. Podría haber consecuencias no previstas. Por ejemplo, los bancos podrían preferir comprar bonos más que prestar a las empresas. Y los inversores extranjeros podrían incrementar su demanda de bonos soberanos extranjeros como una forma barata de financiarse.
So the euro is still very strong, and in fact we haven't actually seen the euro come back against the US dollar any further than it did in an immediate reaction to the ECB announcement a couple of weeks ago. And you've seen domestic and foreign flows putting downward pressure on sovereign bonds, bringing about your yield compression and actually are counter to currency depreciation. Bear in mind that the ECB has a very different project ahead of itself, other than that of the Federal Reserve. So you've got a liquidity differential there. So the ECB, while trying to target the euro with its extra liquidity, is only about 520 billion every single month. And that's only potential liquidity to start in September of 2014. Meanwhile, we have the Federal Reserve pumping real liquidity, albeit at a smaller level than before, into the markets every single month. And of course, you have necessary reforms still needed globally. So from that perspective, the euro strength may not be over just yet.
Hay algunas de estas medidas estaban dirigidas a debilitar al euro, pero otras podrían tener el efecto contrario de fortalecerle. Es posible que viéramos el nivel de 1,34 antes de verlo subir de nuevo antes de bajar con respecto al dólar.
Okay. So first of all, you have to do is really look at the other economies and how you have this expression of don't fight the Fed. US, largest economy in the world. It has the world's reserve currency. It's also a military superpower. And while it's still currently tapering its quantitative easing program, there has been a few setbacks over the last few months. So while many are thinking that interest rates might actually rise maybe this time next year in the US, if we look at the first quarter growth in the US, every single solitary minute you look, it keeps getting revised lower. And while many are saying it was the poor weather in the first quarter, you could also say that perhaps the strength of the quantitative easing and the effect of it is starting to lose some steam. So from that perspective, the weaker dollar might not be something we'll see in the near term. If anything, the stronger dollar, we will probably not see interest rates hiked this time next year, which will only add in the currency conversion to a stronger euro overall. And I don't think that the current economic picture would warrant Fed tightening.
Okay, pasando ahora al dólar USA, para contrastarlo con el euro, vemos que, y también para considerarla como moneda de reserva, vemos que Estados Unidos sigue siendo la mayor economía del mundo, es una divisa de reserva, es una superpotencia militar. En la actualidad está retirando su propio programa de facilitación cuantitativa. Pero vemos que se han revisado a la baja en los últimos meses algunos indicadores económicos y tampoco, aunque se habla mucho de que se van a subir tipos en Estados Unidos, tampoco es algo que esté tan claro. Podría no ser así.
Here are the global reserve currencies since 1450. Now, clearly, I don't remember this far back, but I have read about it. And you can see the change there has been over that period of time as to what currencies are deemed to be the biggest reserve currency. For 80 years, from 1450 to 1530, Portugal was the key reserve currency. That moved here to Spain during the good old days between 1530 and 1640. For 110 years, the Spanish peseta was very much the reserve currency. And then you've got the Netherlands, sometime after that, followed by France, and then Britain was once a superpower, and it all went a little bit haywire, probably just around the First World War. And then for the last 94 years, we have seen US being the main global reserve currency. Look at the average years that you can see that a global reserve currency actually lasts for. We could, in fact, be reaching the end of this particular picture. So the idea of the US dollar staying the global reserve currency as China becomes stronger, as China starts to buy into the euro, could actually be coming to an end. And of course, the euro itself could very well become the main global reserve currency in the next decade.
Por ejemplo, respecto al factor de divisa de reserva mundial, y para poner las cosas en perspectiva histórica, vemos cómo la divisa de referencia, la divisa de reserva mundial ha ido variando con los siglos. Por ejemplo, entre 1450 y 1530, Portugal tenía la divisa de reserva mundial, después pasó a ser España durante 110 años, Holanda 80 años, Francia 95, el Reino Unido 105 años hasta poco después de la Primera Guerra Mundial, y después de esto Estados Unidos ha tenido la moneda de reserva durante 94 años, desde aproximadamente 1921 hasta estos momentos, pero teniendo en cuenta este gráfico, pues bien pudiera ser que el dólar USA perdiera su cualidad de moneda de reserva y que podría perderla en favor del euro. Otro motivo para dudar sobre la evolución futura del par entre el euro y el dólar.
So, this is what we need to be aware of as foreign exchange traders. Yes, it is important to trade the day-to-day action and to trade the price that you see, but to understand the underlying fundamental picture can help you have a greater scope if you're a longer-term trader. So the hunt for yield has become a key theme over the last number of years. And of course, as long as that remains, and as long as capitalism remains, the hunt for yield will actually be here for a long time to come. Chinese officials have long been determined to lessen a reliance on the US dollar as the world's dominant reserve currency. And peripheral bond yields, as a result, partially due to China, partially due to everyone seeking yield, but mostly because investors no longer believe there to be a credit risk associated with the euro. And this all comes back to June, July of 2012, when Mario Draghi made his whatever it takes speech. And from that perspective, what we have seen has been a nice rise in the euro, but without the necessary reforms that come with it.
Siguiendo en la línea de considerar el dólar USA como moneda de reserva, hay que tener en cuenta que todos estos factores fundamentales son muy básicos y pueden ser de mucha utilidad para traders que tengan perspectivas a largo plazo. Bien, seguimos con el dólar USA como moneda de reserva mundial, y tenemos en cuenta también que los funcionarios chinos, los responsables chinos, hace tiempo que ya han decidido reducir su dependencia del dólar como moneda de reserva mundial dominante. Y por otro lado, también hay una caza generalizada, una búsqueda generalizada de rentabilidad en los bonos. Entonces, en parte por la demanda de China, en parte por otros inversores que buscan rentabilidad, todo esto puede influir en el cambio del euro, y todo esto puede trazarse hasta el momento en el que Draghi dijo que el Banco Central Europeo haría lo que fuera necesario para sostener la economía de la eurozona.
So here we have our influential people. You have Janet Yellen, the new chair of the Federal Reserve. She has been very much coming back into the game in the sense of tapering back the quantitative easing that is currently in situ, the Bernanke put, as it might have been seen. And from that perspective, you have to question whether or not maybe we're seeing a little bit of a change in the global picture because of this new taper action. Then you have Jordan from the Swiss National Bank. These are all people that if we are trading Forex, that we should keep an ear out for. Any sort of comments from these can very much be the driving force behind the actual foreign exchange rates. Traders trade on news, much of the time. Yes, there is a technical aspect, but if we hear the Swiss National Bank's Jordan say that he is going to go into the market and actually buy up euros in order to stop the strengthening of the Swiss franc, then we should very much be aware of that, because that could lead to a bounce in the euro from where we currently are. And we saw that a couple of years ago. Bear in mind that if the strength of a currency affects the exports of that country, that bank of that country is going to do something to intervene and to help that country to escape the spiral of lacking in imports.
Vemos aquí algunas de las personas o personajes más influyentes en el panorama Forex actual, comenzando por la nueva presidenta de la Reserva Federal, Janet Yellen, que está llevando a cabo la retirada de la facilitación cuantitativa iniciada por Bernanke, y el presidente del Banco Nacional Suizo, que, como es bien sabido, pues el Banco Nacional Suizo decidió poner un suelo a la cotización del franco suizo comprando euros.
And then, of course, you've got the Bank of Japan. I think this is a very interesting one to watch. Japan has been in quite a state of stagflation over the last 2 decades. And finally, we have seen some action in terms of very aggressive quantitative easing from Kuroda and from the Prime Minister Abe to try and avert that. And what we have also then seen as a result is a very big weakening of the Japanese yen. Bear in mind what's been happening with the Japanese yen as a result of this deflationary spiral that they were in, is that we saw huge amounts of strength in the yen. And if the current measures from the ECB do not actually work, we could end ourselves up in a Japan-style state of mind, and will need a hugely aggressive amount of QE in order to weaken the euro, when, of course, we're being reactive rather than proactive in terms of monetary policy.
También es una referencia importante el gobernador del Banco de Japón, Kuroda, junto con el primer ministro Abe, su Abe Economía, o su estrategia económica en Japón, todo orientado a debilitar, bueno, y con la consecuencia de debilitar fuertemente el yen, después de décadas de deflación o de baja inflación. Y es una referencia importante porque si las medidas actuales del Banco Central Europeo no acabaran de funcionar, serían una referencia sobre las políticas que habría que adoptar, más agresivas, aunque también es cierto que sería en ese caso reactivo. En lugar de adoptar las medidas proactivamente, sería reaccionando a la falta de éxito de las medidas actuales.
And I think everyone here would recognize the next person on the list, Angela Merkel. She doesn't make monetary policy, but she helps to decide it. Of course, Mario Draghi is the person to watch. And of course, what we've seen has been a huge, big difference in the monetary policy stance. But what we have to remember when we're trading euro is the correlation of it with other currencies. And the guy in the middle, the George Clooney of the banking world, as they say, he is the governor of the Bank of England. And Mark Carney has suddenly thrown a cat amongst the pigeons, saying that the markets may not be pricing in a rate hike in the UK as quick as they would like. There is a possibility we'll see a rate hike there very shortly.
Bueno, creo que todos reconocemos abajo a la izquierda a la canciller de Alemania, Angela Merkel, que no decide directamente la política monetaria, pero influye mucho en ella. Y, por supuesto, está el presidente del Banco Central Europeo, Mario Draghi, abajo a la derecha. Y entre medias está al que llaman algunos el George Clooney de la política monetaria, que es el gobernador del Carney del Banco de Inglaterra.
So basically, we'll probably see an interest rate hike from the Bank of England sooner rather than later, mainly due to the fact that we've got new members of the MPC. So we've got a strong economy in the UK, and there's a housing boom, or as I like to call it, a bubble. I can't afford to buy there. And it's exceptionally hawkish for the pound. So it has to be borne in mind that while that not make any difference to Spain in the grand scheme of things, is to be aware of the correlations between the pound dollar and the euro dollar. And you can see on this chart how closely correlated they are. And that is something, if you are trading euro dollar, that you need to have an awareness of.
No hay gran diferencia entre el euro y la libra esterlina en el gran esquema de las cosas. Podemos ver en este gráfico cómo realmente el cruce entre el euro-dólar por un lado y la libra y el dólar por otro están bastante correlacionados.
And here you can see the correlation between sterling dollar and the euro dollar. It's 0.91% in the 5-minute chart and even over the 1-year chart. So if the pound goes higher, the euro tends to go higher too. So anyone expecting to see the euro dollar clamber all the way down towards 130 or 129 can actually expect to see a little bit of a move upwards. In fact, going back to the original chart, I can't. You will actually probably see that at some stage in the game, we will actually see the euro climb that bit higher. The line in the sand is 137.40, and from there, we could actually see a break through this trend line, which could actually bring us all the way back up to 150 against the US dollar. But from that perspective, don't necessarily believe the fundamentals. Always bear in mind that there are other factors afoot, correlations, not just technicals, and the fundamentals are there, but speculation will always be the main driver of the FX. Thank you.